Greetings, Internet world. You're in the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about Cheap Trick and their record, All Washed Up. They released that on November 14th. This is the 21st studio album for the legendary Rockers and their follow-up to 2021's In Another World. I don't think this band gets enough credit for how consistent their output has been in terms of quality and quantity since dropping their self-titled debut back in 1977. And I'd argue that one can attribute this to the consistency in their lineup over the years. It's incredible to see Robin, Rick, and Tom still together after almost 50 years, especially when you consider some of the band's struggles through the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Tom's departure for most of the 80s marked a difficult creative stretch for the band, the result of their label at the time pressuring them to make music that had more commercial appeal. Tom returned for 1988's Lap of Luxury, and while the band enjoyed a resurgence for the next few years, the next couple of decades would present even more challenges for them. It's difficult to remain relevant in the music industry. Their hard rockin' power style has influenced so many bands, I would say particularly through the 90s, but I think that their staying power after everything is a testament to their resilience, and it's great to see the way that they've rebounded in the last decade. Feels like every record within that time frame has been better than the previous one, and All Washed Up finds them excelling at what they do best. While I enjoy bands who like to push boundaries and experiment with their sound, I think there's something to be said about a band staying committed to what they know and love and executing that to the best of their abilities. When it comes to rock and roll, stick to the fundamentals. And outside of a few detours, that's Cheap Trick's MO. All Washed Up is a record that demonstrates that they are anything but. And I love that they're still operating with that signature snarky sense of humor. The 4 washing machines on the front cover are absolutely hilarious, as is the general concept of the title, but that's the kind of rock and roll attitude that I think it takes to get to this point. The irony is that most bands don't even make it this far. And even if they do, it's rare to see them excelling to this degree, making new music, touring, doing all the things that this band is doing. The boys deliver 11 tracks that come in at 40 minutes, reveling in Beatlesque pop hooks, great guitar play, and that solid punch of power ballads and good old-fashioned rock and roll. And it might just be the best thing that they've done this century. The album was produced by longtime collaborator Julian Raymond, one of the most fascinating producers out there, with credits that range from Glenn Campbell and Hank Williams Jr. to Suicide Machines, Insane Clown Posse, and Cottonmouth Kings, which I think is just absolutely wild. Raymond has worked with the band since 2006's Rockford, and there's no doubt that he has been a massive part of focusing the band's energy and guiding them to this point in their career. The power pop element of their sound has always been a key part of their success and popularity, and I think the diversity of Raymond's work throughout his career says it all. Rick's son Dax continues to contribute drums since the departure of Bunny Carlos, and while he's not really involved in the writing process, I think he brings great energy into the studio for the boys. They kick out a raucous combination of hard-edged, power chord rockers like the opening title track and Dancing with the Band, unnerving gothic rockers like Bet It All and A Long Way to Worcester, and the essential love ballad in The Best Thing. Rick lays down some mean guitar licks on this record, particularly on album highlights The Riff That Won't Quit and All Wrong, Long Gone, which has a fantastic big arena feel and a modest but killer solo that's surrounded by great riff play. The guitars shine on 12 Gates as well, another great addition to the band's catalog that also showcases that Robin's voice is still pretty stellar. His vocals soar on tracks like Bad Blood and The Best Thing, which is essential with a track of its kind. At 72, his voice certainly isn't quite what it used to be, but he's still got it. I think he's always had one of the most singular and recognizable voices in modern music. A Cheap Trick song would be exactly that without him, and he brings the thunder on this record. I've read some criticism that the album sags in the back half, but I disagree. The A side closes with 12 Gates, an outstanding move, and I think Bad Blood carries the energy of that track brilliantly into the B side. Love Gone is probably the moment where people feel the momentum slide a bit, and I'll say it probably is the weakest moment on the record. I think it's a bit unfortunate that we don't get a little more power on the B side to finish, but it almost kind of feels like that would be predictable in a way. And I think the mystique of A Long Way to Worcester and followed by the playful, eclectic feel of closer Wham, Boom, Bang is exceptional. And if you're a longtime fan, it's a great title as well to close this album with. The album opens with your title track, All Washed Up, comes out crashing in with big, fuzzy, distorted guitars and propulsive rhythm to give that classic pedal to the metal rock and roll feel. Guitars back off and play with open space in the verses. And the production on the vocals is interesting. It seems a little muddled and buried in the mix, especially on the chorus with the hook, Go Ahead and Touch Me. I think it suits the raw edge and power of the track, but I'm not sure if I necessarily like it, especially because I love Robin's voice so much. There's a brief breakdown at about the halfway point to lead into a third and final verse with a few additional lines that back off the energy before it explodes into the coda. Your second track is All Wrong, Long Gone. This one backs the tempo off with more of a power pop feel to it. There's light, screeching lead guitar that stands out with its chugging pattern just a bit from the rest of the mid-tempo rhythmic elements. The track maintains this feel through the verse, but the pre-chorus switches things up a bit with the heavier guitars crashing in and percussion that stands out more in the mix. The chorus reverts to the lighter feel of the verses, with the guitars feeling even more airy and weightless. A guitar solo goes to work at about the 2-minute and 50-second mark, taking the track into one more turn of verse and chorus for the coda, and leading into your third track, the riff that won't quit. I love this song. Opens, as you might imagine, with a pretty solid lead riff, classic driving percussion, and bass that plays with some open space. The riff makes a subtle shift in tone in the verse, with the vocals taking the spotlight and a second guitar adding some flair. There's a brief pre-chorus that gives everything kind of a legato blend before all of the instrumentation goes to work together in the chorus. I dig that when you think it's going to turn into a second verse, it goes after a solo instead. It feels so appropriate for the song, and it leads into a second turn of pre-chorus and chorus. There's a great synth build into a second solo at about the 2-minute mark, and it finishes with a final turn of pre-chorus and chorus. It's just good old-fashioned rock and roll. Your fourth track is entitled Bet It All. I love this song. The drums bring out a sinister, spooky-sounding track with big, sludgy guitar work and drums that are a little jazzy, particularly on the ride. Robin's vocals are superb in matching the mood, taking the track into a solo at about the halfway mark that explores some fun changes in tone. It's a brief one that remains consistent throughout its structure, closing with a refrain of the hook, Get It On, Get It On, Get It On. Your fifth track is entitled The Best Thing. This one takes a hard shift out of the horror rock feel into glitzy love balladry with shimmering synths that drone in the backdrop, a meditative mid-tempo groove in the lyrics, You're the Best Thing. It's just kind of just had to have this moment on a rock and roll album. Drawn out guitar notes give it that signature feel as well, while Robin tests his pipes on the song's hooks. It is a bit mushy, and there's been plenty of that over the decades in rock and roll, but as I said, I like this song in the mix. A little guitar solo works in at the 2-minute and 40-second mark, taking the song to coda on a refrain of the hook that fades into quiet before bursting back to finish. And then your A side closes with your sixth song, 12 Gates. There's a nice transition here to start this track, upping the tempo but maintaining that power pop style of rock and roll with bright synths and a jangly lead riff. Soaring vocals take the listener into the verse while the big instrumentation plays steady. There's a stop and go with some great harmonies after a few bars, and another minor shift a few bars later where the vocals and lead guitar play and call and response fashion. A solo works in at about the 2 minute and 10-second mark, leading the song into a brief moment where Robin sings a cappella in front of fading instrumentation before the music kicks back in to finish. And your B-side is going to open with your 7th track, Bad Blood. This one comes out with big harmonies, light, steely guitar, and a bit of pedal steel that gives it a serene, island-inspired kind of chamber pop feel. But then the rock and roll bursts through with a twinkly lead riff that nestles into the rhythm of the track that finds a sultry mid-tempo groove. I dig when the lighter textures give way to let the chugging guitars go to work on this one, and they get a bit heavier before leading into the chorus and a hook that plays off the title. A bridge takes the track into a solo before the heavy riff reemerges to lead it into the coda on the tails of the hook, fading out on that island-inspired feel of the intro. Your 8th track is entitled Dancing with the Band. And this track is going to return the album to that propulsive energy, opening with big drums and a ooh, 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 ooh that kind of like frames the title and the hook that comes up as well. The verses feature a call and response with the vocals and grinding guitars, backed by bright synth textures. And then the vocals take the lead in the pre-chorus, with the intro returning to provide the hook. A little solo work plays in at about the 2 minute and 15-second mark, and the track finishes with the final turn of its structure and a little extra guitar. Your 9th song is entitled Love Gone. I said it's the weakest moment, but I still like this song. Kicks in with a prominent vocal and staccato synths and a bit of drum play that I think channels the Beatles' I Am the Walrus a bit. It goes to work at about the 30-second mark with a mid-tempo rhythm and straightforward rock and roll delivery. I love the second verse. The percussion in particular is a big highlight for me. And it's another brief song with a guitar solo taking over at about the 1 minute and 45-second mark and taking the track back to the chorus or the coda, leading into your 10th track, A Long Way to Worcester. A little bass slide takes us into a penultimate track with a dark, smoldering gothic folk and post-punk feel, driven by prominent rhythm and the soft waves of electric guitars. Harmonies usher in a chorus that takes a shift into the lighter melodic territory, with the guitars operating with a more dominant legato presence. The second verse incorporates more texture. There's a brief bridge with wah pedal textures that veer the song into an excellent solo terrain before closing with the chorus. And then your 11th and final song is Wham Boom Bang, comes out immediately with this light, jaunty acoustic guitar lick, bass, and vocals. The drums roll in to develop, followed shortly after by synths and finger snaps. It's classic but fresh, melding power pop with jazz. And I love the woodwinds on this thing, taking the influences of this track back decades before even the inception of rock and roll. It's a really fun way to close out a solid experience from Cheap Trick. Again, I would say my big criticism, I kind of agree to a certain extent. I don't think the momentum lags on the back end, but like it would have maybe been nice to have something towards the end in the final tracks with a bit more energy, especially with the 40-minute runtime. You know, had they had a 12th track that they could have added to kind of boost the energy, I would have appreciated that. But ultimately, I think the final 2 tracks, A Long Way to Worcester and Wham Bang Boom, are so unique and so much fun, and it's a great way to bring this thing to a close. Cheap Trick, I feel like at this point, they're making music that could draw in new fans. I think longtime fans are really going to be pleased with what is going on here. And it's so fascinating, too, being a 90s kid and reflecting back to that period of time, looking at the artists that were popular, especially like in the grunge era. But you think about what this band brought to the table with their style in the late 70s. They remind me of a band a lot like Boston, too, that really just delivering good hard rock, but also incorporating that power pop structure to it. And I think a lot of people ragged on them for that. But you feel that influence, I think, in a lot of 90s music, but particularly in grunge. I mean, you look at bands like Nirvana, you look at bands like Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. You have these singers with powerful voices, and you have these hard rocking songs, and God forbid you'd say it back then, but they're all influenced by pop. They all have catchy rhythms, And, deny it all you want, but grunge was so successful because of that element. I think the difference is that those singers, especially with a lot of their personal experience, and in hindsight, it's easy to reflect on it, brought a darker element thematically to the music. But overall, from a sonic standpoint, I can hear a band like Cheap Trick in the sounds of Nirvana, in the sounds of Alice in Chains, in the sounds of Soundgarden, and even going into other alternative rock bands. Think of like Smashing Pumpkins, who have worked with Cheap Trick, and I think that's phenomenal. Think of Stone Temple Pilots. There's so many bands that took a big page from the book, from Cheap Trick, and I think that their influence, even when they were down, and even when they struggled for so long, they were still so influential. And I love that they have made this comeback, and that they're arguably at one of the strongest points in their storied career. It's great to see. I'm looking forward to this band continuing to make music, and I really hope to get out there and see them. I'll try to post some tour dates for all of you if I can find those and dig those up. I'll throw those in the information there on the album review. I'm going to give this thing an 8 out of 10. I think it's a fun experience. I think it's just rock and roll in its purest, simplest form, the way it should be, and it makes it so much fun. I hope you enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. If you're feeling generous, drop a super chat. I really appreciate that. And please do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.